There we
Just
go. Okay, so recording restarted. So for those who are watching this, we got to the second slide and I just realized I hadn't hit the fucking record button. Sorry about that. But anyway, so we'll just get straight back into it. Disclaimer
we're
under
no we're
section.
no we're no
Sorry?
experts in this. We're no experts in this stuff, man. It's
I
allowed.
know. Only use this every once in a while, but
Yeah.
disclaimer, copyright under Section 107 of the Copyright Act, blah, blah, blah. Fair use for criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research, which this all falls under. At least I didn't wait until halfway through the bloody presentation to notice, but anyway. So, do you want to just do it the same as before? I'll do the first one, you do the second one?
Aye.
Aye, no bother. So, the true site of Thermopylae. To an extent, we may trace the maneuvers of Xerxes in this expedition to overthrow Athens, which took place shortly before the destruction of Babylon, which, according to Commons Beaumont, was York, as he as he marched his vast conscript army westward through Thrace and Macedonia. His fleet sailed round the coast to seek battle with the Greeks, and eventually it reached the Western Highlands, and the Hebrides, having passed through the Aegean Sea, probably so named after the monstrous Aegeos or Aegeon, hence the Isle of Aig. The fleet proceeded to the Strait of Euripus, the Sound of Mull, situated between Euboea, Mull, and the Magnesian coast of Thessaly, Morven. So straight into slide number 2, and on you go.
The mouth of the Peneus, Loch Lynn, in the Firth of Lorne.
You're already cracking
He,
up, aren't you?
hearing that the Athenian ships were cruising round the mouth of the Peneus, Loch Lynn, in the Firth of Lorne, the Persians sent a strong squadron round Euboea to force them into Euripus, where the main Persian fleet was waiting to entrap them. This strategy was defeated by a severe gale in that stormy sea, which drove the Persian ships of Euboea upon the reefs, in which the entire squadron was wrecked about the hollows of Euboea. The hollow agrees the notoriously dangerous Tauran rocks of the southern shore of Mull. And like I said before, like I was at Mull and I never really got to explore it. I wish I maybe got to see these. Is it Tauran? The Tauran rocks?
Yeah.
The Tauran rocks. And like I said before, when I was there a few weeks ago, uh, just across from us was like a mountain range, and they looked like two pyramids, like side by side. On they looked even different kind of stone or
Mm.
different weathering or something. They looked like they were just stuck on top of like a hill. It's beautiful though, amazing,
Well,
amazing
I'll tell
part of the
you.
world.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, there's proto pyramids all over Europe. There was a writer called Charles Koss. I've got the book over there about it. What he calls proto pyramids, like Mesau up in the Orkney Islands or Silbury Hill down in the south of England. But in places like Germany and Poland, there's like these mounds, and also like stone circles and cromlechs and dolmens and things like that. They're all over Britain, Ireland as well. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite fascinating. That's a whole history unto itself, and the whole thing with the ley lines and all this. And there are actually pyramids in Scotland. Through in Bathgate, you've got the pyramids where the old Motorola factory used to be. Up in Balmoral, there's a black pyramid, and just outside of Stirling Castle, there's a black pyramid. And apparently, there was a black pyramid outside of Newgrange as well. Apparently, so I heard, but you know, they've mumped that up so badly. I think Newgrange as it is now was not what it was when they built it. And just up the road, you've got Cairnpapel Hill as well. You know,
Yep,
it really is just on your doorstep. A lot of this stuff. Yeah, it's quite
definitely.
fascinating stuff. Yeah. So yeah, let's head on to the next point. Defending the pass. The Athenians advanced nevertheless against the Persian fleet, being superior sailors and knowing their home waters. But after indecisive actions, they retreated southward to Salamis, and the Persians sailed up the Peneus River, Loch Lynn, anchored near Thermopylae, the pass of Glencoe, which, by the way, is what that painting is behind me there, and were permitted by Xerxes to view the scene of the epic fight where Leonidas and his army had died to a man defending the pass. Here is one more sidelight on this war. So the whole idea of Thermopylae being the passive Glencoe, I think it's one of these things which at first you're like, yeah, right. And then when you start thinking about it, oh, that could actually make sense because I've passed through Glencoe a number of times. You ever been up there before?
Oh, aye. I've actually done work up there, so I've had to like go through that
Oh,
range. But what was I thinking about there before you asked me that question?
oh sorry.
No, I've totally lost it, man. Sorry, on you go, mate.
Well, if it comes back into your head, just interrupt me. But the whole thing with 300, the movie 300, getting
That's what I was gonna say. It's
okay,
for people not realizing like what this battle is. It's a battle of 300, Thermopylae and Xerxes, and
mhm,
so what this is saying is that 300 battle happened in Scotland in a
yeah,
pass, Glencoe.
yep, and
Right.
it is an actual choke point, and I have seen it on. I can't remember whether it was on the Discovery Channel or the History Channel or YouTube. I have no idea where I saw it, but I remember I saw it. There was these like archaeologists talking about like the descriptions that he match. Like something must have happened in the last 1,000 or 2,000 or however long it was, thousands of years, that the topography doesn't match up with the descriptions. And I'm sure I've seen it. I've been going out my head trying to find that clip, but yeah, it's somewhere because the internet is forever. But I have seen it before. Some archaeologist or historian saying the description doesn't match.
Right.
And you've got a Scottish actor, Gerard Butler. You could have picked anyone to play Leonidas. There's 1,000 actors you could have got to play him, and you got a Scotsman to play him. Not a particularly good movie, I thought, but it is what it is. It's basically just gore porn. But you could have picked anyone. You pick a Scotsman, but maybe I'm just reading into it too much. I do tend to do that. But yeah, unless you got anything else, we'll move on to the next one. Unless you got anything else
Nah,
to add. No?
no, it's fine. Is it my turn to read there?
I think it is. Aye, aye, it is.
Did you
Aye,
is this did we read the fifth one? Yep.
aye,
Aye. Aye.
yep. We
Right.
did. Aye.
Right. Cool. Right. In Macedonia, which
Hmm.
is in brackets Inverness,
Hmm.
when Xerxes was yet in Macedonia, in the region of Inverness, from whence he could espy the Olympus mountains, Lochaber range, he was taken in a galley to view the scene of the Deucalion deluge, the flood of Noah, and observing the gorge between Olympus, Ben Nevis, Pelion, Craig Magade, and Ossa, probably Anak Beag. He observed nothing more is needed than to turn the river upon the lands by an embankment which should fill the gorge and force the stream from its present channel. And lo,
Mm. Now, the whole thing about Macedonia, where I would say you have to focus is the middle syllable, Edon. The Cal-Edonians, the Macedonians, that kind of Edon part is where the focus needs to lie, rather than before it and after it. The Edonians, the Cal-Edonians, the Macedonians, the Edon meaning, I guess, people with like red hair kind of thing, or the blonde people with like blue eyes and all this. Whole ties into the whole thing with the whole Aryan thing. And I don't really want to get down that road because it can turn treacherous very, very quickly. But you know, um, the people of the north, this whole idea. And one of the strengths I think of Beaumont is he goes into the geography and the topography and the calculation of the miles not really adding up when you actually look at the map of where these things officially were supposed to have taken place. Doesn't quite match. And that comes up later on. But when you actually apply it to Britain, to Scotland, it looks more succinct, it looks more precise kind of thing. I always thought that was kind of like the strength of Beaumont because I never considered him a particularly good writer. He was a journalist by profession, but to me, it was not how he was writing about what he was writing that was important. Because the one criticism that you could have of Beaumont, and it is kind of a valid one, especially with the Great Deception, is that he didn't really back up what he was saying all that well. But as I explained before, this was like 2 years before he died, and he was all but blind, and he was 80 years old when he wrote this. So he's no got going to be at the top of his game. He died at the age of 82. He was 80 when he wrote it. This was a swan song, you know. So the Great Deception, everything you're taking for the Great Deception is just about putting it out before he pops his clogs, basically. But any insights you have or anything you want to add?
No, that's a good roundup of Beaumont, I suppose. But sometimes I felt he could be just pulling stuff at his arse without really much explanation. Sometimes, but it's still interesting. It's actually really intriguing. I prefer this stuff than the Mars and that again. I think like history, there has been things changed around and places been changed and people been swapped around in history. So I do believe that. So I find this more interesting than the whole Mars stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I knew when we did part 4 of Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth, you just weren't really into it at all. But I thank you for sticking with it, nevertheless. I was half expecting you to just say, I can't be arsed with this shit, and just like leaving. But, you know, I'm glad that you stuck with it, you know. But the thing with Beaumont is you kind of have to take him on faith. You either believe him or you don't, especially when it's the Great Deception. I think with the series you did years ago, Britain, the Key to World History, that was much better written and backed up. But there is reasons, like I say, that when you take in the circumstances behind the Great Deception, it does actually make more sense.
Because it does feel like two different writers when you're reading them.
It does, it does. I mean, he was in his 70s when he wrote the World of Prehistoric Britain and Britain, the Key to World History. It's almost like it was back to back. One was written in 1946 and one was written in 1947. So they were one after the other. So they're almost like two parts of the same thing. But the Great Deception was like 6 years later, 5 years later. So yeah, he did have that kind of respite, and he was maybe a bit rusty. So, you know, and plus he was dying.
I always thought it was earlier. I thought it was always like 1920 something.
I think you're thinking of the Mysterious Comet and the Riddle of the Earth. That was what came before all this. There is quite a gap sometimes between some of the books, though. You're right on that point.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, we'll go back to Glengoy and the flood of Deucalion. So all Thessaly except the mountains would at once be laid under water. This is entirely in accordance with the terrain around Ben Nevis, and in descending from Loch Ness and Lochie, Xerxes would sight the gorge through which runs the River Speen. I've seen that before. Falling into the Lochie River at Muckamer Falls, surrounded on either side and hemmed in by high mountains. Their flanks marked by what are termed parallel roads, actually sea beaches, mentioned earlier, from 1,278 feet above sea level at Glengoy, visible from Loch Lochie, to various levels of 1,140 feet. 1,059 feet and 847 feet. Geeky, the eminent geologist, held views similar to those held by Xerxes. Some 300 years earlier, Geeky was of the opinion that immense glaciers may have held up the waters, but he could not account for their presence. He was unaware that they related to the flood of Deucalion, or the flood of Noah, which, according to Beaumont, is just really the same thing, just different names for it. And that's one way in which I kind of really agree with Beaumont, is a lot of things are applied different names, and you think they're different events when actually they just might be the same thing. And that also applies to different groups and races and things like that as well, or ethnicities. Is sometimes they'll have multiple names and you'll think they're different groups, but they're actually the same group, or they're related. You're on mute, mate.
I was just agreeing with you, man. I was like, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I've been up there, Loch Ness, a couple of years ago now. Beautiful country up there. What do you think when you're up there? What's your feel of the land, of the ambience of that kind of area?
I think it's barren. That's the first thing that comes into my mind, like barren. There's no lot of trees up there, as well.
Yeah.
Like with the route I went, because I was on the roads, but a lot of rocks, a lot of rocky, and just barren. It just feels barren. The Western Isles are pretty barren as well, but there's something else about them, because I don't know, because it's sea.
Yeah.
When you're up north, it doesn't feel like you're near the sea.
Yeah. To me, it feels.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
that last slide, he kind of jumps from Ben Nevis to like, which is sort of on the western side of the country,
Mm-hmm.
Ben Nevis, to like Loch, what was it, Loch Leven, or
Loch Lochy, I think. Glengoy and Loch Lochy.
the River Speen, Loch River at Mockermore Falls. Sorry. I'm just trying to figure out. I'm just trying to figure out my mind, Ken. That like he's obviously trying to paint some kind of picture here, and with this deluge.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep the slide up or?
No. When you go, so this was
Okay.
the flood of Noah. He's
Yeah.
sort of connecting that with that, right?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Scotland, about over 90% of Scotland is empty or almost empty. Over 90% of the population live between Edinburgh and Glasgow, the lowlands, the lowland belt. I worked it out actually. Only about 4% of the population of Scotland live in the Highlands, and that's the upper Highlands like Caithness and Sutherland and places like that. That's not the Grampian Mountains. That's above that area, but it's less than 10% live in the north of Scotland. And it just brings to mind the old Hermetic oath, as above, so below, and like all things are self evident. And also what you're saying about the land being barren as well. To me, if I would describe the Highlands, the Grampians and the Highlands and the Hebrides area, all this area, with one word, it would be haunted. The land feels haunted, like there's traces of something that's kind of intangible.
That's
You don't
that's a
quite know
feeling.
what it is.
That's a feeling I get when I go to a lot of remote places. That
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, surely there were people here. There were traces of people here, and probably a lot of people as well. Like, where the hell are they? And where the hell
Yeah.
did everyone go?
Well, if there was a big flood, they were all
exactly.
probably wiped out. And
Yep.
there's over 30,000 lochs in Scotland. Actually, the true number is actually closer to about 32,000 all told. I can't remember the exact number, but the point is there's a lot.
Right.
So let's go on to the next one. Mount Olympus. Go ahead.
Mount Olympus, Ben Nevis. The significance of the visit of Xerxes is that he could not have gone secretly in a galley from Macedonia to Thessaly in the present Greece except by open sea, risking capture or worse. Yet he went safely by water to spy out the terrain. The classic map of Thessaly, in fact, completely fails to meet the circumstances. Mount Olympus is placed at the extreme north of Thessaly and is correct of Ben Nevis in Argyllshire, the true Thessaly. Mount Pindus is put in the extreme west, whereas Aristotle states that the deluge occurred west of Pindus, and Thermopylae is given the very south of Thessaly, with the Pindus range to its northwest, over 60 miles distant as the crow flies, whereas these mountains lay to its east. Xerxes obviously saw the traces of the deluge in the parallel roads, so the topography applies completely to the Western Highlands in no single respect to modern Greece.
So Beaumont, as usual, kicking the hornet's nest, and at the age of 80, just not giving a fuck at all.
Like, fucking Greece is Scotland, fuck you.
Yeah, because he's on the way out. He's at the kind of don't give a fuck stage of life. You know what I mean? But as I was saying, in that lost section that wasn't recorded, the actual maps came from the 1946 book, The Riddle of Prehistoric Britain. So, like I said before, he was sitting on those maps for a good number of years, about 6 or 7 years before he actually put them in the Great Deception. So he was sitting on that information for years before he actually put it out in the last book. So,
Right.
no afraid to kick the hornet's nest, but when you're in your 80s. But as I was saying before, that's the kind of strength of Commons Beaumont is the geography and the topography kind of arguably leaned on his side, and he's pointing out the maps don't match. I mean, what's the counter argument that Aristotle was drunk at the time, or all the Greeks were just a bunch of pissheads, so they could easily get the calculations wrong? It's a bit of a thin argument. Aristotle was the great philosopher. He was right about everything else, but he couldn't find his arse with both hands when it came to drawing a map. You know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. You can't say that he was this great philosopher, yet he was talking out his arse when it comes to the geography and where everything's supposed to be. You know, you can't have it both ways. That would be what I would say on that. What do you think?
No, I agree with you, man.
You know,
Can I have your cake and eat it?
yeah. And Ben Nevis, when you go there, there's actually, I think, Cromlech's when you go up to the top of Ben Nevis as well. That place does feel kind of special. I mean, I've been up to Fort William before, and I've seen it for the distance. I think there's something about those mountains, man. There is something about them that is kind of like a feeling or an aura. And I'm no sensitive like that, psychic or whatever, but you do get this feeling, you know, this haunted feeling. I don't know. What do you think?
You get a feeling of being small. You know what I mean? Because when you drive through or drive past these mountains, like on your way up to Fort William or something, you're sort of just overwhelmed with the size of these things. Again, this mountain range is huge, up there, and they're the highest mountains in Britain. So they're no, and they cast massive shadows over. Again, they're so epic. You know what I mean? You do get a feeling. You do get some kind of emotional feeling when you see them.
Yeah, it's
very. You can't really put your finger on it. But you feel small and sort of insignificant to these giants.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll head on to the next one, the Pass of Glencoe. The same contention applies equally to the Pass of Thermopylae, for the terrain indicates that it could only relate to the the Dread Pass of Glencoe, and that once explains how the Persian ships could have sailed up the Peneus River, Loch Lynn, to the Gulf of Malis, Loch Leven, whereas in modern Greece it is 70 miles distant from the Gulf of Malis. So again, the topography is just no matching up, according to Beaumont. In western Scotland, the Speen, the Peneus, runs rapidly through the great mountain basin of the Lochaber Range, swelled in times of spate by the waters of dozens of highland burns, swirls through the Muckamer Falls, and then after uniting its waters with the widening river called the Lochie, both emerge into the River Loch Lynn, upper and lower. So certainly my impression reading things like that is that Beaumont must have been looking at this for years to come to this conclusion. And I just mean like the 6 or 7 years between when he put the alternative maps, which you find in Scotland, the Land of Sparta, Part 1, that's one of the first slides. But not just, that, between writing the Riddle of Prehistoric Britain and the Great Deception, he came to all this. He must have come to this a lot sooner. You have to wonder where he started thinking this way.
No, but I think that last slide, there's a few, again, suspect sort of things, like when he says that the Persians' ships could have sailed up the Peneus River, Loch Lynn, to the Gulf of Malis, Loch Leven. And I've been to I like Loch Leven. I go there quite a lot because it's not far from where I live, actually. Again, it's like on a quiet day, you can get there in half an hour or whatever. Again. But so I've been around it quite a few times, and it's a big loch, and there's a man-made straight river, but it couldn't hold Persian ships. And there's nothing that could really hold Persian ships, unlike the first. You got the first, the fourth, and you got further up. You got the up at Dundee. You got the Tay first.
Yeah.
So this idea that this loch joins onto, he's got a loch joining onto another loch. So these Persians are sailing up a loch that joins into Loch Leven. And I've seen Loch Leven. It's a big. If you see it on a map, it's such an interesting Loch Leven, because I think it's really scientifically important. Again, there's something about it that makes it very scientific, apart from the wildlife and all that stuff. But there's something about it, how it was created. I'm not sure if it's a meteorite or something like that, that created Loch Leven. They've drained it. Actually, it was a lot bigger than today. Loch Leven. Loch Leven was a very big loch at one point. It's a big square, kind of massive. It's not like a long loch. Because lochs come in all different shapes and sizes, like we were saying before. But
Mm.
this idea that these Persians came up that what was it, Loch Lynn? Loch
I'm
Lynn.
having a look here. Yeah, the Peneus River, Loch Lynn to the Gulf of Malice, Loch Leven.
So Loch Lynn joining onto Loch Leven. I don't know where. We'll need to have a look at a map because I don't think Loch Lynn, whatever he's saying here, that's a Peneus River. Loch Lynn is joining onto Loch Leven. I don't
Mm.
know. I read that slide and I was in my mind. I'm sort of thinking about my geography and where I've been, and I'm like, whoa. I didn't understand. I couldn't see these Persians sailing up a loch into Loch Leven. So,
Well, what I would
but
say, sorry, go ahead.
But like I said, maybe because of the time it was written, we're lucky. We can just go into Google Earth now and go fucking bullshit. Back then he could throw that. He could look
Yeah,
Lachlan and Lachlan and joins on it. And the average person that's maybe no familiar with the areas that he's talking about, like, all right, just take his word for it, kind of thing. I
yeah.
mean, but if you know these areas, when he makes these statements or asserts something, then again, you start to question it. You're allowed to question it. If he
Sure.
asserts stuff like this, you've got the right to assert not to believe it. Because if the evidence is that there isn't a lock joining onto Loch Leven, because Loch Leven is probably the biggest lock in the area, sort of
Yeah.
thing. Other hill sort of drain. I think it. I'm not. I'm not even sure they kind of don't know 100% where all the water comes from that goes into Loch Leven as well.
Yeah.
I think it comes from
That's
different sources.
that's a very good point. What I was a couple of things I would say in response to that. The first thing I would say is that it's very difficult to kind of get out of your. I don't mean you personally, but it's very difficult to get out of your head the image of the old Greek galleys and all this in the Mediterranean. But what if it, first of all, it was a different type of ship altogether as to what we're thinking in our heads? Because maritime technology is not as clear cut as that. One ship in one place is going to apply to everywhere else. Is that a call reading the Gallic Wars? There was a tribe that Caesar had a lot of difficulty. I think they were called the Veneti. They were up in the north, where Brittany is, I think it was. And, he had to invent a new style of warfare because they were such expert sailors. The Roman galleys, the Mediterranean galleys were, well, for lack of a better word, pish, basically.
Aye.
And he had to create a new form of warfare to actually fight them. He had to create a kind of land warfare on the sea. So, Mediterranean vessels would struggle, in the North Sea. They would really struggle. So maybe the
Mm-hmm.
ships themselves were a bit different. I mean, maybe that sounds like a bit of a thin argument, but I think that also ties into the broader, spectrum of what Beaumont was dealing with overall in some of his other things, and also in different parts of this book. When we get to like Odin's Thunder, and I can't wait to do that. It's going to take me months to prepare it, but my God, it'll be worth it. When Beaumont's talking about the Persians, he's not actually meaning Iran that
Mm-hmm.
we think of today. He's meaning like places like Russia, Romania, Eastern Europe, places like that. The Baltic, the Low Countries, maybe even a little bit of involvement, but like Eastern Europe, he's talking about essentially. He's no actually talking about Iran that we think of today. It's totally different, but that's something to get to in the future. But that's what I would say in response to that. What do you think?
No, I agree, man. I agree with you. Yep. Yep.
But yeah, so I'm actually kind of in this presentation, I'm almost kind of previewing things that I'm going to be covering down the line, kind of thing. Slightly out of
But
context, but
but like I said to the viewers, don't think that
yeah,
we totally fall for this hook, line, and sinker. We'll still question parts of what comment. We're not total common Bowman
yeah,
fanboys. And we know that
yeah,
there is holes there, but there
yeah.
could be lots of little nuggets of truth as well. So that's why it's worth having a look.
Well, I think I'm the one who comes across me as the fanboy slash apologist, pointing out that he was 80 years old. So he might have been going a wee bit off his rocker. 2 years later, he was dead. But that's not to say that we can just throw everything out.
So
So,
we're going on into the subject to Loch Leven, which is the Gulf of Malice.
according to him, yeah.
according to him. Right. After coursing through Inverloch Glen, the stream reaches Loch Leven, formerly Mally, now Kilmally, the Church of Mally. That's another thing, man. That's what I know about Loch Leven too, is that it's got an island in the middle of it, and it's got an ancient church that used to be there, an old wee chapel, and it was dedicated to Saint Serf. That's the Saint Serf is the sort of venerated person in that area. So this, I don't know where he's getting this Kilmally, this Kilmally stuff. This is new to me for Loch Leven, Saint Serf and Loch Leven and stuff like that. But I could be wrong, like I said. But I'm just quite familiar with that area, and up over in Fife, and just over the bridge. It's probably closer to Perth. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, I Kilman, the Church of Mally. See, I would think it'd be the Church of Saint Surf.
Okay.
But that's my opinion. Anyway, answering to the Gulf of Malice, on whose southern shore lies the entrance into the pass of Glencoe. See, this doesn't make sense. I don't think geographically it makes sense. Right. Anyway, sorry, I'm just
No, it's okay.
I've lost where I was reading. Glencoe.
Well, it can
It
therefore.
can therefore be readily understood how and why the Persians from the western shores could sail 22 miles or so from the mouth of Loch Lynn to the Gulf of Malice, Loch Leven, to inspect Thermopylae, and how Xerxes from the other end could sail down from the direction of Loch Ness to inspect the marks of the Deucalion deluge on the mountain flanks, but not by other means. At the mouth of Thermopylae, the Hellenes had erected a fort or wall of loose stones and narrowed down the entrance to fit only 2 men at a time, and, as Herodotus tells us, they were prepared to defend it to a man.
Okay, so.
Like I said, if not being too skeptical, because I'm Ged Skeptic and I have to be a skeptic. But like I said, if you got a map out and you started looking at, but if he said, like, maybe back in those days that Loch Leven was a bigger loch that had other locks attached to it, or I just find it hard to see these Persians sailing up towards Loch Leven. But maybe there was a bigger river. Maybe I'm like I said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about the geography. And Glencoe, how close is Glencoe to Loch Leven?
I'll have a look. I don't know if I can bring it into here. I'm unfamiliar with the technology, but I'll have a look. Glencoe to Loch Leven.
Distance.
I'll come up just now. Google Maps. Maybe I can screenshot it and bring it in. Let me see.
And then people coming down from Ben Nevis as well, so that's for the other side.
Okay, if you give me a wee minute, I'll see if I can bring it into the presentation. So you can just keep talking now, and I'll try and bring it in.
You need a lamp, mate. With a nice warm glow. You're looking cold in there, man. You're looking like something The Shining, like Jack Nicholson when he's in the fridge.
It's just the colour of the lamp that's next to me, really. Let me see. I can change the colour of the lamp quite easily. Right, let's see if I can bring this into the presentation here. I'm not really.
No, I didn't want you to go totally out your way, man, and waste loads of time on it. I was just wondering how close Loch Leven was to Glencoe. Like, because he's painted this picture kind of us sailing on these like lochs and rivers, and I'm just trying to wonder. I'm trying to paint a picture in my own mind. It's maybe good for the people watching as well, maybe to get an idea the
Come on,
geography.
where is it? Aye. I've put it into the downloads. Hang on.
Downloads. You should just go on Google and share screen it.
How
Window.
do you do that? Oh,
You can share screen, man. Let's
okay,
see.
share screen. Okay. It's easiest with two monitors, share screen.
There'll be a wee list of things that you can share, like Windows,
Oh, here we are.
maybe you got open.
Is that it? Is it working?
Aye, that's it.
There's
See
me doing it
that?
the hard way.
That look at that. That's the whole length of the bloody. You need to zoom in. Zoom into that, mate. You need to zoom into
Okay.
that blue line.
Is that zooming in? Or
Aye.
I
So
need to
it's
zoom it
a
in here.
2 hour and 24 car. That's a car journey.
Aye.
2 hours and 24 minutes. Like
Is that
Loch
any better?
Leven. Aye. Can you zoom back a
Aye.
wee bit and we'll have a look at actual Loch Leven itself? We'll
Uh,
see if we can find this Loch Lynn that he talks about as well. Because it calls this there's
is
Loch
this coming
Leven
up in
there.
the presentation as I'm doing
Aye.
it?
Aye, mate.
Ah,
Aye, I
okay,
can see
good,
it.
good.
I can see it. Aye,
Right,
so
I'll
see
pull
you
that
can
back
see
now.
that. So you can see there, people, that Loch Leven, quite a big loch on its own. With little, you can see there's little weak kind of locks kind of around it, but there's nothing the size of that loch, and that's a lot smaller than it was. You see, there's an island on it as well. That island has got Saint Surf's chapel, the remains, like a wee chapel in it. I want to get over there, man. I want to get my inflatable kayak.
We'll drop a wee man so we can see it. Hang on. You know when you go into like the street view.
Mm-hmm. So this is the Gulf of Malin, according to Bowman.
Yeah.
The Gulf of Malin.
I think I've mumped that up. Hang on. I'll drop a wee man next to the loch itself if that'll let me do it. Let's see. No, that didn't work at all.
It's a nice walk around that loch, man. It's a nice walk. It's a long walk around that loch. Long walk around that loch.
So apparently it's 2 hours 24 minutes drive. If you're a walk, it would be 1 day.
Well, Glencoe. Look at Glencoe way up there. That's at the beginning of Fort William. That's beside Fort William, like way up there. So we're talking about like two different sides of the country. He's talking about, and they're going down these locks that the Persians are, and they're entering these locks. I didn't understand what he's talking about here. So I think he's just hoping that the reader's not very familiar with Scottish terrain and.
Yeah.
Because where's Loch Lynn? You could look at Loch Leven again and try and find this Loch Lynn that apparently joins into it.
Hang
Because
on, I'll
that's
look
the
that up then.
Gulf of Malice.
Loch Lynn. Okay, I'll screen share that. Hang on a wee second. Has that come up? Aye, Loch Lynn. So that's quite close to Glencoe.
Aye, the Loch Lynn's so there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Glencoe and the Loch Lynn, they're close together, but Loch Leven's way over there, man. So
yeah, is it easier with the map or the layout? Is that easier?
either, it's still a good judge to show you how far away in the water and what the loch looks like, the size of the loch.
I'll bring up the terrain thing so you can see all the hills and.
And apparently Loch Lynn joined onto Loch Leven. Like that's what we're saying. Look how far apart they are.
Let's go back to the slide, what he was saying here. Okay, so Loch Lynn to the Gulf of Malice, Loch Leven. So he's saying it could sail 22 miles or so from the mouth of Loch Lynn to the Gulf of Malice, Loch Leven. Unless he means circling around the country. Unless he means like going around it. You know, the north coast of Scotland.
That's a big way to go around. That's a longer way to go. Like if you were to go round, that's a bigger distance. You'd be easier just going away.
Yeah, right enough. There does seem to be a wee bit of a
wee bit of discrepancy
question mark over that one. Aye. I mean,
Maybe there's another Loch Leven.
it's possible. I mean, there's over 30,000 lochs in Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
I certainly was thinking of the same one that you were, going by the one I pulled up on the map, I think, when I put that image in. Oh, hang on, I do need to move on to the next slide. So let's have a read through it again. Coursing through Inverlochy Glen, the stream reaches Loch Leven, formerly Mally, now Kilmany, the Church of Mally, answering to the Gulf of Malice, on whose southern shore lies the entrance to the Pass of Glencoe. That must be another loch he's thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? Or
Can't
maybe
be
I'm
that.
reading it wrong.
But it's no, you don't. That's the thing about locks as well. You don't see them really repeating their names. Kind of like there isn't another Loch Ness. I can guarantee you that probably,
Uh,
or Loch Lomond. And there's
See,
a reason why.
most of what he's talking about is on this side of the country, though. Oh, hang on, I haven't put it back up yet. There we go. So
Aye,
there's
so
Lachlan. Hang on, I'll type in Loch Ness. How far it is for all this. So Loch Ness is up here. There's Glencoe there. Loch Leven, I'm presuming, is around this area. Yeah. So everything seems to be on this side that he's talking about. On the
the
western
Highlands.
side. Aye.
Yep.
So he must have had another loch in mind.
Yep. It
I'm
can't be
thinking.
Leven. It can't be Loch Leven. I don't know what
It
Loch
can't be the one that.
he's thinking of. And then, like I said, Loch Leven is Saint Serf, and that's who's venerated in that area. There's the whole area's got little like names like that connected.
Oh, hang on. I typed it in Loch Leven, and it came up another one. You see it?
Zoom in, mate. I can see something.
There's Loch Leven. Okay, that makes sense. There's more than one Loch Leven.
Right. Zoom in again. So that joins onto the. Right, that's starting to make sense a wee bit more because it's on that side. So this will join onto Loch Leven joins on a. What was it? It was Loch Lynn joins on Loch Leven. So
Okay,
I take it Loch Lynn's on.
Hang on, I'll type that in. Loch Lynn.
See how close they are.
Aye, it does.
So
it does actually
aye,
connect.
that's that right there. Aye.
Yep. So it's all on this side. Aye. So there must.
Right.
Aye, that was it. There was more than one.
Cool. Because like I said, it kind of triggered my confusion. I was like, because Loch Leven, the main that's a big Loch Leven. That's a smaller, inferior loch, but it's still a Loch Leven. So, give him his due. He's not just totally pulling one loch for one side of the country and just throwing loch names at us and hoping we would just believe him. There is something going on there.
Everything he's talking about is all in the area. There's Fort William, there's the Speen Bridge, Ben Nevis, which he says is Mount Olympus, is right there. The Isle of Mull, like he was talking about before, it is all in the area. It does actually add up. It's just that there was more than one. Is that still coming through on the presentation side?
Aye, that looks fine.
But
it's good. Cool. It's good that we're actually exploring areas on the map as well as reading the thing. You know what I mean? Because
no, just taking his word for it.
Aye.
Yeah. So there is more than one. So yeah, shall we move on to the next one, or is there anything else you want to look into, or
did we read this one already?
Aye, we did. So I think the next one is myself, the Gorge of Glencoe. Leonidas held the enemy here at bay until a man of Trachis showed the enemy another very rough pass, by which means they took the Spartans in the rear. Examination of the Gorge of Glencoe from the southern end of Loch Leven, obviously the one on the west coast, confirms the fact that a few resolute men could hold the pass there against a multitude, as was known to the hero Leonidas and his followers. This other pass, called Anope by Herodotus, was rough climbing, steep, and rarely used. Here the Spartan king had placed 1,000 Phocians, but when these saw masses of Persians clambering up the gully's sides, they became panic-stricken and fled. So I'm
So
gonna
now we're back to the Battle of 300 again, like on the pass.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna look up Glencoe here, see if we can bring it up on the screen share. Now that I know how to do that, because before the night I didn't even know about that. But there we go. So Glencoe Pass.
Every day's a school day.
Well, yeah. I think we can bring it up the Devil's Staircase.
Right.
I'll see if I can bring it up here on the screen share. Hang
Oh,
on.
we've not got to that slide yet, have we? The Devil's Staircase.
No, quite. I think that's maybe the next one after this.
Oh, I don't think it's been mentioned yet. And you're gonna spoil it before we've read it.
Never mind. Okay, I've jumped the gun.
You're getting this Devil's Staircase out before we've even read it.
Okay. You're right. You're right. Okay. I think that's the next one. So shall we go to the next one then? Now that I've spoiled it.
Nah, man, I'm only kidding. I'm only messing around.
Okay. No bother.
I'm just having a smoke, mate. So.
All right. No bother.
I'll keep the camera off.
Oh, that's fine by me. So, do you want me to go through this one then, since you're having a wee puff, or?
Aye, crack on, mate.
Okay. The Devil's Staircase, Anopeia Pass. The Anopeia Pass may be sought in the narrow, steep and rugged defile which nearer to Linloch Leven, which, if climbed from its eastern side, could cut off defenders from the mouth at Glencoe. Like rats in a trap. Its Gaelic name is Anna Quar Othar Big. I have no idea if I'm butchering the pronunciation, and it is also known to many as the Devil's Staircase. Once through the pass of Thermopylae, all roads were open to Xerxes. Focus. I can't even read that. Locris, the Peloponnesus, and Athens. One road lay past Doris, a tiny area not over 3.5 miles in circumference, which led to Achaia and Locris, Duror, to this day a strip of alluvian land bordering on Loch Lynn. The Achaeans, a brave, chivalrous, but sporadic clan, were congregated along the banks of the Peneus in the present, how do you say that? Upland, I think. And I think I'm going to need glasses soon. Bennard, Benderloch region between Duror and Dunstafnage Castle.
It's Dunstafnage. I was there. I think that was last year. I was at Dunstafnage.
All right.
That's near Oban.
Yep.
It's on that side again. West Coast.
So let's have a look then.
So get the Devil's Staircase out, mate. I know you're turkenty.
Well, I think this is it here, isn't it? This treacherous pass that he talks about.
There's so many places called the Devil's something, kind of in Scotland. Like when you're walking through, it's like, oh, the Devil's River, the Devil's Bun, the Devil's the Devil's Headache.
The Devil's that.
Aye, there's a lot of the Devils around Scotland.
Here we go. It's come up right away, actually.
Usually they were mountains.
Aye.
The Devil's Tooth. Devil's
There's
Ankle.
There's Kinlochleven, which he was referring to.
Yeah.
Glencoe Pass can't be too far away then. There's Ben Nevis. Yeah, there's a Speen Bridge up there, so it's all in this area. It's all down here. Yeah. Let's see if
is Loch Leven open to the sea? Kind of like, is it like got a mouth that's just like joins into the ocean? Loch Leven.
There we go. There's Glencoe Pass right there.
Rather than being that does look like a good pass. Kind of does look like a narrow. If you have a battle there.
Yep. It does match.
And it said that they made it narrower.
Mm-hmm. There was an image of it in the presentation that I put in. It's up on the top top right hand side, but you can't really make it out because I put in the other. I should have made that the full thing, but anyway, lesson learned. But aye, so it's just in this area here, and Loch Leven was right out until Loch Lynn.
I should have had my Greek key background. Yeah, I've got Greek key wallpaper. Check that out.
Hang on. All right.
That's what you call Greek key. Well, I used to do like cornice as well. I used to do like, it was called mental plastering. My granddad had a business doing it, and I was an apprentice, and there was obviously different designs. There was a lot of Roman Greco stuff as well, but Greek key was quite a favourite amongst the cornice. Kind of for the fancy Victorian homes, with the high ceilings at the corner, so you got running between the walls and the ceilings, and the ceiling roses as well.
Yeah, you probably see it in the Georgian House, you know, in Charlotte Square in Edinburgh.
Oh,
you probably see it in there.
They've got a habit of painting them white now. Kind of, it's just pure white usually. But back in the old days, man, they used to like paint them all different colours and that, man, because we used to restore a lot of the stuff. So what we do is take a sample to like clone it practically, in the workshop. We'd make an exact replica, but we'd have to peel away the layers of paint, because people paint over these cornice so much that they lose all their details. And a lot of them have got really fine details, and people just paint them, and over like 100 years they've been painted, 150 years, like they practically just like blobs kind of on the ceilings. But see, when you peel back all that paint, man, we used to put it in like boiling hot water, peel the paint off, and you would see like gold leaf. Kind of like I was peeling paint off it was like grapes, kind of like grapes, and it was like grapes and floral designs and animals, and it was like a plate, a plaster plate. But I mind peeling the paint off and discovering all these kind of, the grapes were painted purple, and kind of the leaves were painted green, and I had gold leaf on it. I actually had gold paint on it. I was like, oh my god, man! Like so.
Well,
it must have been pretty cool back then, like walking into these colourful cornices with these colours and hand painted.
I'll tell you one thing: when you go to the likes of Stirling Castle, particularly, when you look at the tapestries, it's all things out of the Bible and ancient Greek mythology. And you know, on the Royal Palace in Stirling Castle, all the demons and the devil face towards England, towards the south, and all the angels are facing towards the north.
All right, but it's funny.
I'm sure I was felt that.
It's funny because I'm sure that can you see all the Roman and the Greek white pillars? I'm sure they were painted kind of all like the same with Egyptian stuff. Can we see all these ancient pillars and they're plain, and so we mimic them. So we create architecture mimicking like these plain white pillars. But back in the old days, they were painted, they're totally painted with colourful designs and stuff like that. And we're sort of mimicking these plain white, and like we're mimicking almost like ruins. When in their glory, they were probably painted colourful designs, again, so these plain white.
Yeah, it's all just came off. It's the colours just came off. Like the Great Sphinx was painted red. I've read that more than once. Yeah, more than one source said that, because it's invoking Mars. That's a whole other story.
I know a lot of the Egyptians. A lot of the Egyptian stuff was painted. A lot of the ruins, again, they've got traces of paint everywhere, kind of like all over the stone.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, we just
back in. Sorry.
No, on you go. Back in.
I was going to say, back in Georgian and Victorian times, people were obsessed with like lineage and ancestry and all that, and that's where you get the Athens of the North from. In Edinburgh, and the whole idea that we're descended from the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Greeks and all that. And Arthur's Seat supposedly is named after King Arthur, and
we've got a football team. We've got a football team called the Spartans as well in Edinburgh. Spartans FC.
Right. Oh, really?
It's all about that. Aye, Spartans FC.
Good point. Spartans FC. I didn't know that, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Oh, there is. They're not that bad actually. I'm sure they play at Meadowbank Stadium. Can the Meadowbank Stadium?
Right.
That's our home stadium. Or is that Edinburgh City? It's maybe Edinburgh City.
Aye. Is that near the swimming pool?
It's on London Road. London Road.
I know where London Road is.
Then you got top of leaf walk, and you got the Eddie Princess Street, and you got the big roundabout kind of where the St James's Centre used to be, kind, but now it's just traffic lights. And well, you go past the Omni Centre, and there's like new sets of traffic lights, and then you take a right and you swing down towards Meadow Bank, and it's called London Road. It's a big massive road that takes you down to Easter Road practically as well. Like that's side of the town, but. It's funny because we're talking. Me and the guy in my work, we came across this picture of Britain. No, it was Scotland. It was just Scotland. Sorry, it wasn't Britain. It was just Scotland. And it was almost like a satire, stereotypical satire. Like the top half is the sort of northwestern side of Scotland was like a Highlander playing bagpipes, and then the southern part was like a fishwife. Holding a basket with fish, like the old maids, with the basket full of fish, and that led me to the story of Fishwife's Causeway, for Joppa, it leads up to the old High Street, where the old fishwives used to make that journey for the coast, Edinburgh, which was Joppa, up to the High Street in Edinburgh, and me and the guy at my work got in a discussion it, and he couldn't believe that you still follow the old route, the Fishwives Causeway, right up to the High Street. Some of it's road now, but some of it's just like footpath, that you have to.
Well, I've got it in mind in the future to do the whole Edinburgh-Jerusalem connection, and that'll be more than one presentation if you want to get on that, because that'll be something else when we get to that topic.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Whose turn is it, by the way? I forgot. It's your turn.
I suppose. Sorry. In a way, just going back to what we were talking about.
Sure.
It kind of, because I do think there is an element of truth that all this stuff in the Bible is related to places here. It feels so right inside me. So when I hear about these other things about Greece being in Scotland, I'm like, is it plausible that? You know what I mean? It's like I'm thinking that Ireland and Scotland are like the real Holy Land, the real birth, Christianity, Celtic Christianity, probably the first. Again, they talk about the Reformation with the Catholics, but the Catholics reformed the Celtic Christians who come from an old religion. You know what I mean? It's sorry. So going back, I find it hard when we're reading these Greek battles and all that in Scotland, and I've still got this sense of, do you know what, like Scotland and Britain is like the Holy Land, and this is and they've just changed the names of places in the Holy Land in Scotland, but Beaumont's kind of, it's like he can't make up his mind, because he kind of plays with the idea too, and the Holy Lands, and it could be in Britain and stuff like that as well. So. He's like he's got so much stuff he can connect. Maybe these old Greek battles that we hear about weren't Greek battles that happened in other places, and because we've got records of the battles up in Glencoe between maybe the Jacobites and the parliamentarians, or whatever. There's maybe stories of like the parliamentarians against Jacobites, and they were fighting maybe at that pass, and there was probably battles going back in Jacobite times, and it's like it's almost like, well, we don't know the full story of what happened at the Battle of Thermopylae, so we'll look at other battles and see if we can take little bits. And there's maybe a kind of like an old Jacobite battle where there was only like 200-300 Jacobites left, and they've got Cromwell's kind of army charging towards them, kind of like thousands, and that's. And so, like I'm saying, it's a lot of history. It's just it's kind of fudged and played with and changed. And by the time it gets to us, it's got all the bells and whistles attached. And I don't know, man. But that's why we're reading this, Blair. This is why we're interested. We're trying to dissect and try to come to an opinion on our own. We don't have to follow Beaumont's opinion. We don't have to follow other authors. But if we can get enough evidences and can try and get something, get some element of truth, a real history in there, where we really come from.
The good thing about Beaumont's writings, because he came from, this kind of sounds like a backhanded compliment, and the way it kind of is, but with Beaumont having the journalistic background, his stuff is kind of easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
It's no like
Yep.
heavy intellectual stuff. But the book I was
Oh, but
going to
some of
recommend,
the place names are hard to say. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because I found that
that's
all the way through
yeah.
Bowman, that like, all these place names kind of like between Greek and Italian, kind of all these different, and you're
Yeah.
trying to pronounce them all, and it's
Well,
so.
yeah, because it's just you're unfamiliar with it. But like Beaumont's a good way into it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to the likes of Barry Dunford, the Holy Land of Scotland, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you got that book. My God, that is. If you talked about all this stuff, if you get into the Holy Land of Scotland, incredible. That's 2 or 3 levels up the ladder, intellectually from Beaumont. And I'm not saying he's stupid, but he was a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was not a heavyweight intellectual. Barry Dunford isn't really either, but his stuff is a lot more complex, and it's quite frankly better referenced and it's more credible. Once you
Yeah.
get into Barry Dunford with the Holy Land of Scotland and the other book, I can't remember the name of it. This Barry Dunford's books. If you haven't got them, I would say get them because based upon what you're saying, you would absolutely love them because it gets
Mm-hmm.
into all this in incredible depth and detail, a lot more depth and detail than what you get with Beaumont. And I'm not trying
Yeah.
to slag off Beaumont, but you get what I mean.
Aye.
It's a
Aye.
different style. It's more
Yeah.
complex. Um, uh, but yeah, so shall we uh, get back to this? I think it's your turn to read, if I'm not mistaken.
Aye. Did you find this devil's staircase? Did you show the people where this devil's
Yep,
staircase thing was?
I did indeed. That's it right there. That's
Did you zoom
it.
in? Because it's just a
Sure.
tiny little red dot.
It's well, I don't know what map would actually bring it up best, to be honest.
What does that say in the red writing beside that marker?
Anach Egach. So it's just kind of over this pass. Let's see if I can get the wee man to zoom in anywhere. I think Google Maps, you have to be kind of precise. So yeah, so it was kind of over this area. Can't really bring it up in any more detail, unfortunately. Maybe if I hit the 3D thing, it kind of gives you more of a. If you go back to the slide, actually, it points out where it is. I made a bit of a mistake there. I should have just made the Devil's Staircase the whole image. See, it's up on the top right there,
Mm-hmm.
the Devil's Staircase. That was a bit of a mistake. I should have made that more detailed. So up where the loch is, so it's round about there, I guess, and then it comes down this way. So here, down to here, and it's just kind of over this area, I think, if I'm reading it correctly. Let's see if I can go into this wee bit here. Oh, it's just some guy who's taking a picture. So there's like a pass like over the hill, and it's like this hidden passageway. It reminds me actually in the Two Towers, Lord of the Rings. The stairs of Cirith Ungol, where they have to sneak into Mordor. It's almost a bit
Mm-hmm.
like that, really, isn't it?
Aye.
But let's see, terrain wise. So you kind of get it. It's like it's rough passes up over this area somewhere. So you can take them
Yep.
in the rear because this is Glencoe Pass right here. So Glencoe there. So it's right at the back of the pass. And let's see if I can get a good. No, not really. Let's see. Yeah, so there's Glencoe itself. So it's right at the rear. Take them in the rear. Total surprise. Close to the
So
Three Sisters.
the soldiers are now sort of gathering at
Yep.
the banks of the Peneus
Yep.
in present Applin and Benderloch between Durer and
Yeah.
Dunstafnage.
Yep. Oh, hang on. Oh, sorry. I thought I was showing that the whole time. Whoops.
I
You
was
see it
going
now?
to say to you, I can see it now. I was going to say it, but I didn't want to
No, no.
highlight
Please do correct.
anything.
Sorry, please do correct me if I'm doing anything like that because I'm no used to this technology just quite
Aye,
yet.
you're
But
learning, man.
no, no. If I'm talking to myself and I'm saying, "Oh, here it is," and then you can't see anything
Mm-hmm.
on the screen, please say, "Blair, what are you talking about? Can't see anything."
Yeah, yeah.
Aye, so in the rear there. I'll maybe just edit that last 5 minutes. Sorry, mate. But yeah, so there's Glencoe there. There's the pass, and to the rear. Yeah, where they would take them in the rear.
Well, you can definitely see that being a place for a battle. And I bet you if you typed in a search like these same areas in a battle, there's probably been, because that looks like somewhere where you would want to maybe can surprise an enemy can as they're walking through, because that's like a natural passageway that you would sort of naturally go through that pass, and there'd be people in the hills waiting with the high advantage points.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there has been battles, or even if it wasn't the Persians against the Greeks.
Yep. Absolutely. Anything else you want to add before we go back to it?
Nah, man, we'll go back to the slide.
Presentation.
It's my turn to read, is it?
Yes, it is. Delphi and Athens.
Delphi and Athens, Dumbarton. There were the roads open to Delphi and Athens, Dumbarton, at the mercy of the enormous armament brought by the Persian king. But this much must suffice. I have said enough, perhaps, to convince some at least of my readers that these heroic and important events took place in bonny Scotland, to which country the world owes a debt of freedom it can never repay. So get down on your knees, kiss my feet, and say I'm the king. Right. Of Xerxes' subsequent march to Delphi, and how he captured Athens, and how the indomitable Athenians held out and fought him grimly until his fleet was routed at Salamis, and Xerxes retired, terrified that he be cut off at the Hellespont, leaving his general Mardonius to extricate his army out of the mess, is a story often recounted and needs no new pen.
Okay, so the first thing I would say there is, if you were following the part one, the Hellespont, according to Beaumont, is actually the North Sea.
Right.
So getting used to this,
I remember in his other book, Britain, the Key to World History, I think he said the Shetland Isles were Crete. I think he was implying that the Shetland Isles and the Orkneys were like Crete, and the other islands that we know in Greece.
Yeah, it was the Orkneys and the Shetlands, he said, were the motherland of all civilization. That's one thing about Beaumont. He's not afraid to go there when it comes to making grandiose claims. Especially when it comes to Scotland.
Aye. Bonnie Scotland.
To which the world owes a debt that can never repay.
Of freedom.
Yep. Debt of freedom it can never repay. So that's the Hellespont there, actually, according to Beaumont, is actually the North Sea. And this was where the Doggerland was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, you've probably come across that before in your research. In fact,
I'm
fairly certain that you have.
I've done a couple of videos on Doggerland, man. It's because it's something that's not really known of, and it should be known more of.
Yep.
And that we were attached to France, and there's probably little villages and all sorts of stuff between in the sea right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you can even see remains of trees and forests on the beaches in Scotland, like fossilized trees and stuff.
Oh yeah, cool. I can't imagine it would be too difficult to find either if you knew where to look. You could find it pretty quickly, pretty easily. Actually, it's just that nobody knows to look. That's the problem.
Yeah.
In fact, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, does he say that Dumbarton is Athens? This is what he's kind of certain in this.
Actually, yes and no, because it's not that straightforward. It says that the original Athens was actually Bath, down in England, and after the
Bathans.
Yeah. So the original, the original Bath was the original Athens even was Bath, and after the Great Catastrophe, the war between Atlantis and Athens, Athens was moved up to Dumbarton later on. So there was like a shift.
That's convenient.
I know. That's a presentation I'm actually working on at the moment. And I know a gentleman from Dumbarton, and I'm kind of in two minds whether to invite him on or not, because that's his hometown.
Mm.
I'm just kind of a wee bit worried that he'd think I was taking the piss. Um,
Well,
you
it's
know,
it's it's you shouldn't be afraid to like have a try and look at a different point of view or a different, and it always expands the mind, whether it's true or not. It can get you thinking. It could send you on another. It can make you could resonate with something there that makes you think. Wait a minute. And if that can get you questioning our history, that's all you need. It's something in there, just a little nugget. That's what I call them, little nuggets.
exactly. And the thing about Dumbarton, is it showing up on the presentation?
Yeah, you can see the map now.
Aye, good. So Dumbarton is right on the west coast of Scotland, and it's
Hmm.
right down from all this. So you got Fort William, you got Glencoe, which is Thermopylae, according to Beaumont, and you can see it straight down into this area here, just outside of Glasgow. The thing
Hmm.
about Glasgow is that it was the second city of the empire, and that wasn't too long ago. It really wasn't all that long ago. What, 200 years, even less than that. And what was Glasgow famous for? It was famous for the shipbuilding industry.
Ships. Yep.
Yeah. And what was the strength of Athens? Their strength was their navy.
Hmm.
So when you think about it, the Athenians famous for their naval power. Dumbarton's just, along the River Clyde from Glasgow. Glasgow, essentially built the British Empire through their naval industry. So seems daft on the surface, but when you actually think about it, maybe there's something there. You know what I mean?
There's definitely
Um,
parallels.
yep, definitely. And we'll maybe jump the gun here because there's a whole presentation going to be on Dumbarton that I'm actually working on at the moment. I'm not sure really what to call it, the Dumbarton Ancient Athens or Dumbarton Athens of the North, which would be more accurate because it wasn't the original one according to Beaumont. The original Athens was actually Bath. you know, um, but how to phrase it, and how to present it, and not look completely crazy. You know,
Hmm.
that's the kind of challenging part. But I've actually almost finished it in a sense because I've got all the slides are prepared in terms of the text. I've just got to find like the right images because I think it's kind of important to get the right images. Again, it's a work in progress because I'm no, you know, particularly
Well, well,
proficient
just
at
like
this.
just like what we're doing tonight, that
Yeah,
we were looking for the places on the map. You can maybe take a
yeah,
screenshot of these sort of
yeah,
map pictures and show the people where Bowman is actually talking about in relative to real world cartography.
yeah. Absolutely. Oh, by the way, that speaking of images, the one there on the right hand side is Ben Crocken, because
Mm,
in a previous book he said that was actually Delphi.
mm,
Let's see if I can pull it up here. I'll show you. That's quite near all this that we've been talking about tonight. Actually, it's up near Dalmani, I believe. I'll pull it up here on the map. But yeah, I like your idea about screenshots because then you can really put it into context. So
mm-hmm.
this image that you're seeing here on the right hand side
Yep.
is the top of this mountain right here, Ben Crocken, and Ben Crocken is not too far away from all this. There's Oban. Let's see. There's Glencoe. So it's literally just a wee bit further down the map. I'll make it easier to read with the terrain here. So there's Thermopylae, according to Beaumont, and there's Delphi just down in this area right here, Ben Crocken.
Talking about Oban, have you seen the McCaig's Folly, the tower? It's like a it's like a
No.
it's like a it's like a coliseum in Oban. It stands over Oban. There's like a hill in Oban,
Yeah.
and on the top of it, I think it was in the maybe 1800s. This guy built this giant. It was almost like a. It's meant to be a memorial, I think, to his like ancestors and stuff. He's got all these their
Yeah.
statues built around it and stuff. But it definitely like speaks Greece. I mean, like Greek architecture, Roman Greco architecture. If you type in McCaig's Folly or McCaig's Tower, Oban, and show the people like this rings like Greece as well. and you can't. There's no mistaking. You would think it was like somewhere in Greece if you first seen it.
McCaig's, was it McCaig's Tower?
McCaig's
Is that
Tower or
it?
McCaig's Folly.
I think I've got it. Hang on a second. There we go. I'm getting a lot better at it now, aren't I? Just
Aye.
once you do it once, you know, then it all falls into place, doesn't
Look for
it?
a
Is
giant.
this what you mean?
Aye.
Like this?
Yep. But when you're standing on the shore, when you're on open and you're standing near the water on the coast, and you're looking, if you put your wee guy on the sort of docks, and if you walk along the street and you can sort of look up the hill to the right.
Overdone it. Right, okay.
No, you were sort of close
There
where
on
you
the
were.
shore.
You just, no, you were go back to where you were. Again, beside the docks
Down
now,
here?
go by the harbour. The harbour and the docks and all that stuff. There,
Here.
chuck
Okay.
yourself down there.
All right.
And see right in front of you. Look at that.
Yep.
You would think it was like a coliseum or some shit like that. Kind of, it's so
That does look
unusual,
like it.
and especially in Oban, to have something like that. And when the guy died, he left a mass fortune behind, and he wanted it preserved. He wanted £1,000 a year to keep up the preservation of this tower, and his heirs, the people that was inheriting, they fought in court to keep the money and abandon this tower, this idea of having this tower with all these statues in it. So it's kind of half abandoned, a bit like the National Monument up in Calton Hill that we were speaking about earlier. And if you show the people, because there you are, it's kind of there right in front of you, in front of that lamppost.
There we go.
The guy was
blurred.
Bloody
lamppost in the way.
I get why
I don't know
something's
why.
blurred out there. Go a few steps forward. Look up. But it's this crazy, and it's huge. It is huge. And if you show the people as well, like share screen, the monument that we were speaking about,
the
it's huge as well.
Calton Hill.
Aye, it's huge.
And
the pillars are massive. But same again, I think it was the battles with France, the Battle of Waterloo, had to just stop.
Yep.
Was it for that?
Napoleonic Wars.
The Napoleonic
Wars.
I'm
show you something.
I'm sure we abandoned it because of that.
No, actually, they ran out of money. So everything from Calton
because
Hill
of the war, they ran out of money because of the war.
I'll show you something. Okay, so if you just kind of bear with me, I'll explain it all. I might not be far enough down here, or the trams are in the way. All right, so if I go forward a wee bit here, right, this statue that you're seeing, can you see it? You can see it. So that statue there is
Wellington.
That's the Duke of that's Duke of Wellington. He's the man who won the Battle of Waterloo, and he's pointing. Hang on, I'll zoom in on it. He's pointing towards Waterloo Place. Yep. The North Bridge is over there. So yeah, this is Waterloo Place, and as you go further up Waterloo Place, don't know what happened there. Oh no, I know what happened. I went under the bridge. Hang on. Bear with me. Google Maps is flawed a wee bit. Right, Calton Hill. So as you go further and further up towards Calton Hill, you've got that tower that you see. That's the Nelson's Monument. That's dedicated to Admiral Lord Nelson. He lost his life in the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. That's a naval victory for the British against the Spanish and the French fleets. And up at the top of Calton Hill,
and every 1 o'clock, a bronze ball comes out of that. You probably didn't know that.
That's right. That's for the mariners.
And it goes back inside. You're right. It's for the mariners. It's for the seamen.
That was in 1852.
I was looking like Pisa.
When they
I was looking like Pisa, man.
No, sorry. It wasn't 18. It was 1863, I think, that they had that, or 1850. I can't remember. It was in the 1800s, mid 1800s. They created that ball, and they would raise it and lower it. I think it was noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was by that the mariners set their watch.
It's 1 o'clock, man, because you got the 1 o'clock gun. You got the 1 o'clock gun.
That's
as
right.
well.
It was 1 o'clock. I think originally it was at noon and it was moved to 1 o'clock, or no, maybe not. Maybe it was just 1 o'clock.
But look at the size of that. Look at the dude standing next to that pillar. You know what I mean?
Uh,
That just shows you if they finished that, how big that's probably bigger than the original Greek stuff. You know what I mean?
well, the original plan was it was to be based on the Parthenon, and it was going to take up all this space, and all of Scotland's heroes were going to be buried under it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the original plan. But they ran out of money. It was designed by a guy called William Henry Playfair, and his statue is just outside the National Museum of Scotland. And now it's known as Edinburgh's Disgrace because they ran out of money and they only built a quarter of it. But it was meant to reach all the way back.
Quarter of it, you bet, a
even
tenth
that.
of it. Aye.
I know. That was meant to reach all the way back here. And they were going to bury all of Scotland's national heroes underneath this monument. It was 1850s, 1860s that they first created the time ball. They would raise it and lower it. So the mariners say, you're right, it was 1 o'clock. They would set their watches. The trouble is with Edinburgh's weather, you can always see it. So they added the 1 o'clock gun later on.
Yeah.
1850s is when the time ball was added. 1860s is when they added the 1 o'clock gun, I'm sure. But anyway, I'm getting a bit pedantic, aren't I?
But it just shows you again that the influence of Roman Greco architecture, and same when you go down Princes Street and you see the galleries, getting the art galleries.
Do you know, I was actually thinking about that a few minutes ago, about 10 minutes ago. If you look at the columns on the galleries, it's they've got the Corinthian style, the Doric style, and the Ionian style. And you can tell the Ionian style because it's got a set of eyes. That's the Ionian style of architecture with oh, hang on. Oh, I've not switched it back yet, have I? Thanks for reminding me. So that's the Ionian style of architecture there on the National Gallery of Scotland. And I think they've got the Corinthian style somewhere. And there's a Doric style as well. I think that's the Doric. And if you go to St Andrew's Square,
look at the new
on one particular side.
If you look at the new St James's Centre from above, it looks like an eye.
It does, aye. St Andrew's Square. So there's the Ionian style. Hang on. Quite popular, as you can see. And if we zoom out, the Melville Monument, St Andrew's Square.
That looks like an eye as well.
And there we go. Yep. Oh, you mean the centre originally? I thought you meant the square.
But even the shape of that, you can see the whole half moon shape, and it's like the eye. If you lift it up, you zoom it away a wee bit, you can see that half moon shape.
Yeah, the crescent
moon. The birds.
Yep.
Yep.
You ever read when Scotland was Jewish?
I've never read it, but I've heard quotes from it.
Yeah, I could do whole presentations just on that, mate. Some of the things that are revealed in that is quite incredible, but I don't want to get too sidetracked on that. But yeah.
Have we got any more slides left?
Very eye-opening. So there's a number of slides left. It goes up to 18 slides, so there's 5 left to go.
Jesus Christ. Ah, Jesus Christ, it's good.
Oh. That's okay. I know. So whose turn is it? I can't mind. I think it's...
I'm having a ciggy. So
right,
you just do the honours, sir.
Okay. So the classic even, Athens. I'm sorry, folks. I'm no slurring because I've been drinking. I'm slurring because I'm actually pretty tired. I got up at 4 a.m, so my concentration's not at its best. In fact, on the way home work, I fell asleep about 3 times a night. But anyway, I'll try and hang in there for the final stretch. So anyway, getting back to the slide. I simply prescribe this as Beaumont, a new geographical outlook on these events, but I shall show elsewhere how and why there are the strongest reasons to believe that the ancient city of Dumbarton with its rocky Acropolis, was the classic Athens up to a period. It is a romance indeed, in which tribal wars and the steady deterioration of climate played their part. It is sufficient to add now that after his disastrous defeat at Salamis, Xerxes fled from Greece in a mighty haste. He is supposed to have crossed the Hellespont again, but even Herodotus is not sure about his movements, though he apparently left hurriedly in a single galley from Abdera in Mygdonia, a part of Macedonia. Abdera, how do you say this? Abdera, sorry, lay on the river Nessus or Nestus, and Inverness on the Ness may have been built on the site of this once flourishing port on the way to the Hellespont.
Cool. So we've dragged Inverness into it now.
Yeah, let's head north, shall we? There's Inverness. So apparently this was Macedonia in the old days. And the River Ness.
Loch Ness. River Ness, there's a river Ness that goes into the loch.
Yep, I think it does actually. It goes down into it. Yep, there's Loch Ness right there.
Yep.
That's it right there. And it splits the northern part of the country in two. Because the actual political highlands is this area up here. And this is the Grampians here, I believe. And so the north is actually cut in half by this river and Loch Ness.
It's like a natural
yeah, so apparently
straight line through the country. And it happened over like when the continents were the countries were being created apparently. And apparently this rock matches with like North American rock on the left hand side, kind of Loch Ness. And I look at that rock. So when they were meant to be like that was meant to be smashed in against. They were meant to be separate, kind of that's been smashed on and like joined on.
Yeah.
So you got this line. But so the geologists say.
Yeah. Are you entirely subscribe to like the main ideas of geology? I think they're missing huge pieces of the puzzle.
They probably are, but it's a good theory, bro.
Yeah.
We can't rule it out.
So he's saying that they went up to this place called Abdera on the river Nessus or the Nestus. So that must be just somewhere up here somewhere. Must have just jumped on a galley and off he went and buggered off.
Well, how far down does Loch Ness go, and where does it?
Actually, it would make a lot of sense because Thermopylae is down here, Glencoe. There's Fort William. There's Loch Ness.
Well, that was like I said, it's like a straight line. Okay, so if you had boats and maybe there was more water, maybe that was joined. Maybe Loch Ness could have been like more accessible by boat from that side, from the so-called Thermopylae side, the Glencoe side.
Oh yeah, unquestionably.
And it would be a natural sort of way to travel, kind of following that line up the country. And Inverness, obviously, Inver means mouth of the River Ness.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
So then the Nessai, is that what he's calling it? The Ness, is there somewhere in Greece called
Nestus.
The Nessai? Nestus?
Don't know. Saying Abdera lay on the river Nessus or Nestus.
So, right, Athens is in Dumbarton.
Yep.
So where's Salamis?
Hang on, I'm looking for Nestos. Okay, hang on. I'll switch back a wee second. Hang on here. So this is in Google Maps. So according to Google Maps, this is where the Nestos River is. According to the mainstream version of events. So I'll see where Thermopylae is in comparison to that. And we'll see what actually makes more sense.
And see if there is a Gulf. Is it Gulf of Malice or whatever it is?
Look at that.
No way.
That's a long way.
I suppose, but I suppose from how far is it?
According to this, it's a 4-day walk. It's
1 hour,
465. No, 106 hours. Can you see it?
106 hours.
Aye.
Oh, 106-hour walk, but in car. And how far
Five
would it
hours
be?
and 5 hours and 17 minutes.
Right, and the Glencoe one's obviously closer, and that's
A lot closer.
you could probably do that in an hour or two. But
Yeah.
uh,
Well, let's compare. There's the mainstream version,
aye,
and
you can see it. You can
here's
see it. You can see
Beaumont's
it for
version.
space. You can see it for space.
So according to Beaumont, it just went from there,
It's
basically.
it's probably more realistic,
From
that journey. Kind of like if.
yeah, from there to there, according to Beaumont, right? And according to
Mhm.
mainstream history, it was fae there to there.
Well, I suppose
So
if you've, because up there is Istanbul, and that was like the gateway to the sort of east. Um, so if you were going to have Xerxes and his armies, that's the probably route they would have took, like through there. But it was boat. They were by boat, wasn't it? They
yeah,
travelled by boat, Xerxes, and landed somewhere.
yeah. What else is he saying here? Dun. By the way, Dunbarton is incorrectly spelt. It's Dunbarton. Dun. The I don't think it's a prefix exactly, but dun. The word dun in Scots, it means
There's a
fortification
hill,
or
aye, like
castle.
a hill fort, aye.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think it is actually Dunbarton. I think it's Dunbarton.
Mhm,
I think that's more realistic, and it actually means fortress of the Britons because that part of the country was Strathclyde area. That was part of the kingdom of Strathclyde, which was the Britons. And when you start getting into like the War of Independence with William Wallace and Robert the Bruce and all that, they had a lot of Brittonic ancestry, a lot of Brittonic blood. The Scots, many of the Scots who fought in the War of Independence had a kind of a mixture of Norman and Brittonic lineage.
mhm,
Um, Interestingly, in fact, Beaumont himself, Beaumont's a Norman name,
mhm.
so go figure. So we're all this hodgepodge of different kind of. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit sidetracked with all that, but
No, well, it's an interesting thing because I went back to that third party ancestry site. It's called My True Ancestry.
yeah,
It just matches up with ancient stuff, kind of like all the ancient or the gladiators that were dug up, and kind of they've got their DNA and they try and match it to all these different ancient. So I'm probably going to do a new video on that because I've actually purchased some of the hidden things, and I thought, oh, that's been interesting. So I'm probably going to make a new video and go through some of that stuff again because I find it quite interesting. But it says I've got a wee bit I've got a bit of Norman there, like I've got a bit of Norman.
yeah. Do you want me to look up?
House of
Sorry.
Normandy. In fact, it says I've got the same ancestry. Well, it was the same Y haplogroups as
Huh?
the House of Normandy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that.
With a name like Wolf, I wouldn't be surprised. It does sound like it.
Mm, well,
Um,
apparently there were Normans that went over Ireland. They were the Wolves, the first Wolves. But,
yeah.
right.
It
Anyway.
comes up in the. I was just going to say quickly that comes up in Mars Atlantis and the Hollow Earth and presentations I've yet to do in the future. But anyway, so do you want to do this one to
Yep.
Babylon, York? Okay.
Yeah, but I just have to like squint because it's so small on my phone. The writing.
Uh,
It's like really tiny. It's like reading the back of a paracetamol packet or something. Right, anyway,
mm.
it was very soon after his
Ignominious.
ignominious. I couldn't even see that. And I thought it was like ignominious. Light from Hellas that Xerxes hastened to Babylon, still smarting under the heavy defeat he had suffered, his purpose being to indemnify himself for his heavy losses, to recover his waning prestige, and partly out of zeal to establish the Zoroastrian or Mosaic faith by
Mm.
reconstructing topography such a course to reach Babylon, York, conveniently by sea, would have been a simple process. From there, he later took a ship to Sardis, which may be placed as the Saarbrück region of the Rhine. Consider the orthodox idea as taught in the schools to have led his forces to Babylon via Sardis, taking the accepted sites. would have entailed a journey of almost 600 miles from the alleged Macedonia in Thrace via the Hellespont to Lydia in Asia Minor, and thence onward to Babylon, a further 850 miles at least, a total of over 1,450 miles.
Yeah. It's quite a difference, quite a discrepancy there in it.
So he's making an assertion that York is Babylon as well.
Yep. And you covered that years ago with Britain, the Key to World History.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the theory back then?
It makes everything a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, the distances, and I suppose back in those days, we never had public, we never had cars, we never had the fastest you could travel is a boat. Even then, it took months to get from one place to another a lot of the time. So it makes sense that these stories take place like in a smaller geographical area rather than these massive miles. Kind of armies travel 500 miles and stuff like that. Kind of doesn't make sense sometimes in the areas and the distances. But anyway, I'm on a bit of ramble.
No, it's
Next
okay.
slide.
I'm just looking up the distance on Google Maps, but anyway, it is, by the way, quite a distance. Anyway, yep. So enter Babylon. It is an incredible acceptance of marches to lead armed forces that distance, even if they had the commissariat, and it would have occupied an immense amount of time, whereas Xerxes, without taking a rest, actually entered Babylon with little delay in order to restore his damaged prestige. Arrived in Babylon without dispute, he destroyed the temples with fire and utterly laid low the vast temple of Bel, leaving in its place a huge mass of stone, rubble, and dust. He laid hands on the immense treasure stored therein, including solid golden images valued at over 61,000 gold talents, probably worth about £20 million at the present valuation, and took it away to offset his defeat in Greece. Now, slight criticism of Beaumont here. You shouldn't be saying Greece, you should be saying Hellas, because if you're crossing the Hellespont,
Mm-hmm.
the North Sea, then the correct name would be not Greece but Hellas to avoid confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a town in the west of Scotland called Helensburgh, the Hellenics. You know, just to make that distinction, I would have done that instead of saying Greece. I'd have said the Hellas. And
Yeah.
there's also the idea that the Isle of Skye is hell. The river Styx. That was something, not the biblical hell, the monotheistic hell, but that was like where the Great Catastrophe happened. I remember this from Beaumont's earlier books,
Mm-hmm.
and the river Styx takes you across to the Isle of Skye. You know, so there's all
Mm-hmm.
those connections in the earlier Beaumont works. But what do you make of all that?
Well, I think York's a very important place back in ancient times for religion in Britain.
Yeah.
Anyway, even rooted in Celtic Christianity. I'm sure the Chaldee, Celtic Christian monks were down there. I mean, so it's definitely an important part of the story and the puzzle. And whether Beaumont's right or not, but I think York does play a big part of what are true religious. And like I said, I think Christianity had its roots in Britain. I really do,
Yeah.
mate. I really do,
I'm
and I
with you.
think it stems again from the old, it evolved probably from pagan times. But I think something happened, some catastrophic event happened to make the people give up the pagan beliefs and go towards a more monotheistic belief. I think it was a catastrophe. It wasn't a conquering army. It wasn't influence or anything. I think it almost happened universally. If you're worshipping sun gods and all that shit, and a big catastrophe happens, and suddenly there's no sun in the sky because there's a volcano going off, blinding the kind of clouding out the sky, and you can't grow your crops and stuff like that. What good's your sun god then? So I think
Yeah.
the ancient Brits probably questioned their pagan sort of beliefs at a certain point, and started leaning towards a more monotheistic one God. And I think that's probably where the roots of Christianity was. And I think there was a catastrophe in Britain, some kind of massive event, like a tsunami, like that made the waters rise, Doggerland, like we were saying earlier. So I do think there's something to that. I do.
Have you been to Staffa Flow off Iona?
I never got a chance to go to the Staffa Flow. No.
Well,
There was a few places in Iona. You're kind of just off the ferry. You had a few hours to sort of run about and get back on the ferry again, back over.
Well, in one of his previous books, I think it was The Riddle of Prehistoric Britain. It was one of the two, Riddle or Britain, the Key to World History. I think it was the earlier one. He talks about, there's a whole section talks about Staffa Flow being the temple of the underworld. And like it was actually like Staffa Flow was like a temple to Osiris, who was like the god of the underworld and death. And you had to know the password in order to pass into the Hall of Amenta in Egyptian mythology. And they talk about in ancient Egypt, the Hall of Judgment for souls who passed on was in the north. And Beaumont made the assertion that it was actually Staffa Flow. And that's the Hall of Judgment where you face judgment before the gods, basically, and you go into the underworld.
There's another place I can't remember what it's called, but there was a pub named after. There was a Witherspoons named after it in Oban, where I got something to eat. But the pub was named after a whirlpool. It's like a famous whirlpool near Oban in the waters. You used to suck, and it's really powerful, like whirlpool. And I think maybe the ancients used to think there was some god or something like working. They venerated this, I think, this whirlpool, and it's almost like a whirlpool almost embodies like the underworld, and in the sea anyway.
Yeah,
And it's like a hole, kind of, you get sucked into to another world.
Yeah, because the sea represents the abyss. The ocean represents the abyss. That's the place to really be afraid of, is under the water.
Yep.
The sunken lands, the sunken continents, and that's why people are dead scared of the sea, afraid of the water, and things like that. You know, what's it called? Aquaphobia, or something like that. Yeah, well, people should absolutely be terrified of the sea. You know, in about 500 years, Britain as we know it's not going to exist anymore, probably. I wouldn't be too surprised.
Always the
about that.
optimist. Right, listen, next slide, man.
I know it's getting a bit late. Actually, I'm up at 5 a.m, so I should probably wrap it up.
I'm up early as well, but I think I'm going to have a half day because it's Christmas coming up, and my boss is just going to. I don't think there's much work coming in at this time of the year, so.
Yeah. Well, we'll just fire through these last two slides. And I'm not being rude by any means, but I'm up early in the morning, so I get where you're coming from. Let's just get through the last two. So, okay, I'll take this one. The prophet Ezra, while in Babylon, he extended his patronage to the prophet Ezra, who then went to Jerusalem with a big following. Josephus describes Ezra, there was now in Babylon a righteous man, and one that enjoyed a great reputation among the multitude. He was the principal priest among the people, the Jews, that is, and his name was Esdras. So that gives you the time period when the Jews were in the Babylonian captivity. He was very skillful in the laws of Moses and was well acquainted with King Xerxes. I'm presuming that's who he means he gave him patronage. Xerxes had written to the various governors of Syria, instructing them to give Ezra all aid on his return to Jerusalem. Ezra read this to the Jews in Babylon and sent a copy of it to those beyond Euphrates, including the 10 tribes beyond Euphrates, an immense multitude not to be estimated by numbers. And just quickly before we go on there, I think there's two versions of the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud. I think there's the Babylonian one and there's the Jerusalem one, if I'm not mistaken. Can you correct me on that? Because I'm not sure. But I think there's more than one version.
I think that's right. But what I'm trying to envisage here, I'm painting a picture of Commons Beaumont right now, and it's like these Yorkshire Jews, these Yorkshire Jews, but they probably know. But if he says that because I think Beaumont suggests that Jerusalem is Edinburgh in his earlier books to this,
and in this one, The Great Deception.
So by theory, these are Scotsmen being held in York.
Yeah. And
These Jews, or maybe even Irishmen as well.
The evidence presents itself even in small ways, like the grass market in Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mistranslation. It comes from Grice market. Grice in Scots means a young male pig. The pig market was held outside the walls. What does
Mm-hmm.
that tell you? Well, kosher law. Why is the pig market outside the walls of Edinburgh?
Yep. And they're probably even seen as even just health wise, kind of like they were seen as dirty. So like,
Mm.
can keep them sort of the
Uh,
further away the better.
the Jews have been in Scotland for the longest time. When Scotland was Jewish, talks about it. They've been in Scotland since at least 1290, because that was when Edward Longshanks kicked them out of England. Where did they go?
They were getting kicked to loads of European countries, and I
Yeah.
think they came here.
You'd be surprised. Like I'd say half to three quarters, probably every Scotsman alive is Jewish ancestry, Sephardic. That is not Ashkenazi. Though I've actually possibly got Ashkenazi through descent from Clans Fraser. But a lot of Ashkenazi Jewish
Nah,
families
mate,
came to Scotland.
they've got our ancestry.
Oh, maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. But
they've got distant Scots ancestry, which makes them part of the tribes.
oh,
It's no over there, mate.
okay,
I'm
I hadn't
telling you,
thought of
that's
it
how.
that way.
Aye,
Yeah.
it's the other way around, mate.
Well,
That's
I
why you
hadn't
see
thought
the
of it like
ginger.
that.
That's why you see the ginger Jew running around Israel.
It's funny. When I went to the Wallace Monument years ago, there was a Jewish guy with a family there, and he had blonde hair and blue eyes, just
Mm-hmm.
outside the Wallace Monument. And if you go to Glasgow, um, where the necropolis is, just where the what do you call it, the memorial for the
Mm-hmm.
Battle of the Bell of the Bray, that's where the Jewish cemetery is, right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right next to it, right across from Glasgow Cathedral.
I've got a book right now, and it talks. It's funny because we're talking about cemeteries and graveyards, but I just got a book the other day there, and it's see it there,
Silences
silences,
that speak.
and it's records of Edinburgh's ancient churches and burial grounds with biographical sketches of the notables who rest there. And it's amazing how many like Jewish graveyards were just like paved over and built. It was actually amazing how many graveyards in general were just wiped away for history in
Really?
Edinburgh. So you can't really get a church, you can't really get a graveyard before the Reformation, a
Oh.
pre-Reformation graveyard, apart from St Cuthbert in Edinburgh. But
Mm,
that's the only pre-Reformation graveyard
yeah.
because the rest were like there's a lot of notable people that they don't know where they are, kind of like notable heroes and warriors and stuff like that. Kind of they didn't know where they lie anymore. And this book kind of goes out to try and discover that. And it was I think it's 1930, 1931 or something.
Mm,
But it goes back to like the medieval period and stuff like that. But
yeah.
I'm
I
looking
wouldn't be
forward to
surprised.
reading the book. It's Edinburgh as well, isn't it? Edinburgh printed book.
Did you get it in the Westport?
Ah, smells old. No,
Did you
in
get?
fact,
Ah,
it was one of my workmates kept it aside. He was doing a house clearance,
mm,
like clearing a flat, and there was like a pile of books there, and he found this one, and the first person he thought was Ged, because my whole graveyard. I like my graveyards, I like my churches. Uh,
yeah.
the older, the better.
Well, of course, absolutely. And when you get into the book when Scotland was Jewish, it gets into all this. How there's Jew. Aberdeen, by the way, is a big Jewish colony.
Mm-hmm.
Big time, big time. And
Really.
also Ayr and Stirling. There's a church apparently in Stirling, which is basically a synagogue, which is very thinly veiled. It's essentially just a synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
They say it's a church, but it's really no. And if you know what you're looking at, you can figure it out. Also, I've heard about Glasgow as well. During the pogroms in Eastern Europe, when they were getting kicked out, the Jews were getting kicked out of Poland and Russia. A lot of them passed through Glasgow, except some of them never left. They actually just stayed there.
But the thing is, they just married Scottish women and kind of just blended
Yeah.
in with society. They didn't really impose their beliefs anywhere. They didn't demand that. They're kind of like nowadays. If you have a groupie, a certain minority, they'll demand a mosque. Just say,
Mm,
for instance.
mm,
well, these Jews back then they didn't want to make a big deal. They just want to blend in, and then
yeah, it's an
so
interesting point. Well, that's all subject for another time. We're really getting a wee bit sidetracked here, but yeah. Do
That's
you
your
want to do the
fault,
last
mate.
one, or I know, it's my
I'll,
fault.
I'll do the last one. I need to
I
screw
tend
my eyes
to,
in.
I tend to, I know. Apologize about that. I should have made the text a bit bigger. I'm learning a lot of lessons tonight.
Mate,
I've kind of messed it up in a couple of
it's my
ways.
fault, my laziness. Get my computer set up, and I thought, I'll just use my phone. It's nice and
Mm.
convenient. I'll just plug the because there's a lot of messing around when I get the laptop out. I have to plug the mic in and do loads of checks. And with the phone, you just put the earphones in, and away you go. But anyway, I'll read this last slide.
Okay.
God would preserve them. It throws a sidelight on past events for Josephus. I'm getting distracted by my handsome face here. Right.
Okay.
It throws a sidelight on past events, for Josephus goes on to say that Ezra had gathered those across the Euphrates, not far distant, but as regarded the remainder of the 10 tribes. He told the king that God would preserve them and did not request horsemen or escort to bring them. They were seemingly settled in the present Romania or thereabouts. The Persian tyrant, having thus sacked Babylon and destroyed the famous temple of Bel with other pagan temples and shrines, went on his way. From this period, the city declined further. Her walls had largely been thrown down. She was despoiled of her riches, strength, and resources, and was compelled to pay heavy tribute. So little wonder her former population drifted elsewhere, and we hear no more of Great Babylon until Alexander the Great.
Yep.
Alexander. We had a king, Alexander.
Yep, we certainly did. And we've even got a statue of Alexander the Great and his horse Bucephalus at the city chambers, exactly where, according to, I think it's the Maccabees, if I'm not mistaken, exactly where Alexander the Great would have met with the priest of the temple.
There's
And the
another one.
temple
There's another
was
one up
interesting.
tall. There's another one up Tall Cross. It's like the man with his heart. It's in a style. It's almost like it's a modern arty farty style, but it's the same again. It's like I think it's meant to represent Alexander and his horse. It's a tall cross. It's like a statue. It's sort of tucked away in the financial sort of blocks.
Really, I never heard of that.
But same again. You walk past it, you're fucking Alexander the Great. What's he doing here?
Yeah, I mean, I made a video about it like 2 years ago. Alexander the Great, a Scotsman. When you put all this into place, it's certainly possible because apparently Macedonia was Inverness. Things like
And
that.
although you highlight the Donia being important, or Edonia,
Yeah.
the Mac, the whole Mac thing, you know what I mean? Mac is quite a prominent beginning of a lot of names. And I was about to say an English one, Macclesfield. It's like example, Macclesfield, England. But there'll be plenty of places like that begin with Mac.
I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon, but I'm going to go back to Google Maps just for a wee second to
But
show you.
York's definitely a place I want to explore. Can maybe spend a weekend exploring.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But according to Commons Beaumont, I'm going to show you the real Alexandrian Empire, according to him. Just very briefly. Oh, hang on. How do you do the screen share thing again? Let me see. Yeah, share screen. There we go. Get the hang of it now. I'm learning an awful lot tonight. So yeah, has it come up? Yeah.
Yep.
So according to the little heart there, that's the Shetlands. So according to Commons Beaumont, the real Macedonian Empire was basically Europe, and the great battles were fought. First of all, the battle against Tyre was actually fought right here, Portland. That was the Battle of Tyre, and the causeway going out to Tyre, you see right there, that was the causeway that they filled in. And also, according to Beaumont, Carthage was Waterford down in the south of Ireland. So the Romans were in Ireland after all. The Carthaginian Wars were the Roman wars against the Irish. Nothing to do with North Africa. And so that was Tyre. And then when he conquered it, went over and he conquered Troy. And Troy was actually, I believe it was Hamburg.
Is there no place in France called Troyes?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think there is.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. So that was
Troyes. Troyes. Troyes.
Troyes.
I type that in, Troyes. See what comes up. Troyes. I'm sure it's French. Troyes, France.
Oh, there you go.
There's a Troy there.
Yeah, because all these groups, all these families, European nobility, they all knew their
Close to
lineage, I guess.
Luxembourg as well. It's
yeah. So so according to Beaumont's version, Hamburg was Troy, and then the other battle, I forget the name of it, big battle in Iraq and then Persia was actually fought in Germany. Can you remember the name of the battle? It was a big battle against the Persian Emperor. If I look it up, Alexander the Great battles, but apparently one of the big battles was there. And then when he pushed on, it was down into like this area, and the Persian Empire was actually like Romania and Bulgaria and all this down here, this area. And then he pushed on into Russia, and from there invaded down into Afghanistan. So apparently his route of conquest was right the way through Europe, right the way through here. Of course, Egypt as well was brought into it. And then he invaded this whole area from the north down into what is now India, having basically conquered large swathes of Russia. That was Commons Beaumont's version of events. What do you think of that?
Oh, it's definitely interesting, and I'm willing to look at all the evidence he's provided, and they didn't they didn't have to be solid, Ken. It doesn't have to be solid, but it just has to get you thinking. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I'm looking forward to the next part, mate. To be honest with you.
Cheers. Well, I made a few mistakes tonight. I made the text far too small. I had no idea how to use screen share. And I was slightly disorganized here and there, but you live and learn, don't you? I haven't done a lot of these, so.
It was fine, mate. It was fine.
No bother. Well,
anyway, thanks for having me, man.
No bother. I've enjoyed talking to you. And,
aye, same here.
I'm going to head to my bed before I pass it.
Aye. Right, man. Catch you later.
Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.